Are you ready for the weekend?
Weekends on UME Radio. Get the UME Radio app.
Weekends on UMERADIO. The sun is up and so are we. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook, all at UME Radio.
UME Radio. Positive entertainment 24/7. Subscribe on YouTube and click the notification bell.
Welcome to Entertainment Now on UME Radio, WUMEDB New York. This show takes you beyond the music, dance, box office and thrills. For deeper and more meaningful insights into the minds and hearts of the players. We share stories about pop culture, celebrities, and everything entertainment, but with education and empowerment in mind. It's all about positive entertainment. Here is today's hot topic.
Here are the headlines for today's hot topics. Cardi B awarded over $4 million in libel suit against YouTuber Tasha K. That's not right. Janet Jackson slams rumors of having a secret baby with ex-husband James Debarge. Variety.com released on January 25 that the Bodak Yellow artist, Cardi B, was awarded nearly $3 million in punitive damages and attorney's fees on Tuesday in her libel lawsuit against celebrity gossip blogger Tasha K. The award comes on top of the $1.25 million that jurors awarded on Monday after finding Tasha K, whose real name is Latasha Kebe, liable on counts of defamation, invasion of privacy, and infliction of emotional distress. Cardi B sued Kebe in 2019 over several videos uploaded to her YouTube channel that made harmful claims about the rap artist. Kebe claimed Cardi B contracted herpes, was a prostitute, cheated on her husband, took hard drugs, would give birth to a child with intellectual disabilities, and had engaged in lewd acts with beer bottles, among other assertions. Cardi B's lawyers said Kebe was obsessed with slandering the Bodak Yellow rapper, and continued posting slanderous content because it got more views than her other posts. Cardi B's lawyers added that the rapper was not a prostitute, had never had herpes, and had never used cocaine. The federal jury in Georgia awarded $1 million on Monday to cover Cardi B's pain, suffering and reputational damage, as well as another $250,000 for medical expenses. On Tuesday, the jurors ordered Kebe to pay an additional $1 million in punitive damages, and her company Kebe Studios LLC to pay another $500,000. On top of that, Kebe is required to reimburse Cardi B for the personal cost of bringing the lawsuit, a total of $1,338,753.47. Sadr Sabek, who represented Kebe in the case, issued a terse statement: "We disagree with the verdict, and we will be filing an appeal."
These last 4 years, fighting this conspiracy case have been extremely challenging, and yet I wouldn't change a single thing about any of it. I've learned so much. Every moment was incredibly powerful and insightful. The verdict handed down on Monday was no shock to myself, my husband, or my legal team. We are prepared, and we were prepared for this challenge from the beginning.
In a statement sent to Variety, Cardi B said, "After almost 4 years of repeated libel and slander against me, being able to walk away from this victorious brings me great happiness. I appreciate Judge Ray for conducting a fair and impartial trial. I am grateful for the jury and their careful deliberation over the past 2 weeks. I am profoundly grateful for the hard work and support from my legal team. Most importantly, thank you to my family and close friends who held my hand and helped me get the support I needed during this experience." Cardi B continued, "During this trial, all of you have learned about the darkest time in my life. That moment in time was fueled by the vile, disgusting, and completely false narratives that were repeatedly and relentlessly being shared online. I thought I would never be heard or vindicated, and I felt completely helpless and vulnerable. I have never taken for granted the platform that my fame allows me to have, which is why for over 3 years I dedicated every resource I had to seek justice. Janet Jackson slams rumors of having a secret baby with ex-husband James Debarge, reports AtlantaBlackStar.com. On January 27th, the website released an article highlighting a point of contention for the singer from Janet Jackson's 2-night documentary, and the legendary singer will be taking control of her own narrative, it reads. The article continues, in the project, Jackson is not only talking about her career, but she will also be addressing rumors about her personal life. One of those rumors has to do with her first marriage to singer James Debarge, whom she tied the knot to at just 18. For years, a rumor has swirled about Jackson carrying Debarge's child, but leaving her sister or brother to raise it. Although the Good Times actress and Debarge were only married for about a year, Jackson says I could never keep a child away from James. She added, "How could I keep a child from their father? I could never do that, that's not right." While Jackson doesn't know who the exact person was to start the rumor, she indicated that she has a feeling about where the idea of her being pregnant, back then, may have started. Jackson became Cleo Hewitt on the first season of Fame, and left before the season ended. Jackson believes some of her cast members on the show started the rumor because she had started taking birth control pills around the same time, which caused her to gain weight. The 55-year-old said, "A lot of the kids thought I was pregnant because I had gained weight, and I had started taking birth control pills. And back then, you could pick up weight taking them, and that's what happened to me." So that rumor started going around. The following audio is courtesy of Lifetime YouTube channel.
You've been very private about your personal life up until now. Why did you want to do this documentary?
It's just something that needs to be done.
Jackson's documentary, Janet, premiered yesterday on Lifetime and A&E.
Principles of journalism. Your first obligation is truth. Be transparent. Allow your audiences to make their own assessment of the information and draw their own conclusion. Your first loyalty is to citizens. Maintain allegiance to citizens and the larger public interest above any other. Present a representative picture of all constituent groups in society. Its essence is discipline of verification. This is what separates journalism from other modes of communication such as propaganda, fiction, or entertainment. Its practitioners must maintain an independence from those they cover. Be objective. It must serve as an independent monitor of power. You serve as watchdog over those whose power and position most affect citizens. It must provide a forum for public criticism and compromise. Accuracy and truthfulness requires that as framers of the public discussion, we not neglect the points of common ground where problem solving occurs. It must strive to make the significant interesting and relevant. It is storytelling with a purpose. It must keep the news comprehensive and proportional. Keeping news in proportion and not leaving important things out are also cornerstones of truthfulness. Its practitioners must be allowed to exercise their personal conscience. Every journalist must have a personal sense of ethics and responsibility, a moral compass.
Last year, on March 27th, UMERADIO published an interview with seasoned journalist Garfield Burford. He has been working as a journalist since 1998 and is currently the director of news, sports, and current affairs for the Antigua and Barbuda Government Broadcasting Agency. The following is a portion of that interview, which was centered around the principles of journalism, with references to the media coverage of the Duchess of Sussex Meghan Markle. We believe it is also pertinent to Cardi B and Tasha K's verdict.
I'm really happy to be here with you to discuss a story that is, or an issue that is really close to my heart in terms of journalism, the practice of journalism, and what I consider to be the absolutely inalienable tenets of journalism that cannot be in any way compromised. Those are the foundational aspects of what journalism is built about. For example, early in your introduction, you had it. Some of the issues of truth, accuracy, fairness, fearlessness, Those are some of the issues that I'm really happy to be talking with you about. There's been such a metamorphosis in the way information is gathered. So back in the time before social media became a major phenomenon, people depended on air or the print. So it was a specific time for the news. Let's say, for example, on television or radio, it was appointment radio or television. You tune in at a particular point and you listen for what was big in the news at that point. What has emerged now is instantaneous news, almost like fast food news. For instant gratification. People want information now. They're not going to wait until your next newscast, whether it be 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. That's too late. By 7 and 8 o'clock, whatever would have happened 2-3 hours before that is already almost stale news. You have to be advancing the story. You have to be trying to find new angles, getting details on it. So what has emerged has been a kind of dichotomy between new media, i.e. social media, with all its platforms, such as, for example, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, etc., and Instagram. And then you have the traditional media, which continues to have to find a way to make sure that it is not totally usurped and eclipsed by social media. So while I mentioned this at a forum with the US Embassy in Jamaica about probably 6-7 years ago, and at the time, the media was discussing how do we ensure that we keep relevance within the context of a significantly emerging influence of social media. Because people want new information now. And it almost, if the media is not careful, if traditional media is not careful, you could find a situation where they are eclipsed. They're irrelevant because people find a way to get their information on social media. So what traditional media has to do, it has to maintain relevance by having a social media presence, and that social media presence cannot in any way compromise the values and tenets of journalism, meaning double check, triple check, make sure that your information is accurate before you post it, because people, for example, influencers on social media, they have no such, sort of obligation. They have no such compunction. In other words, it is not significant to them whether or not they check the veracity of some information before they post it. They just post it, and their many followers will gobble up that information, share it myriads of times. And if it's not true, they just say, well, oops, that's it. The traditional media can't say that and is not in a position, doesn't have the luxury of putting something out and waiting for verification. We have to verify first. So it puts the onus on traditional media to get information quickly, get verification quickly, and compete in the social media sphere. Otherwise, it becomes a dinosaur, a troglodyte, it becomes, stale news. So it has to maintain relevance in the social media space. At the same time, in the traditional media space, it has to maintain that level of investigative journalism, of long-form journalism, because social media has no such interest in long-form and investigative journalism for the most part. Their main job and their main obligation and the interest is to get information out quickly to satisfy the instant gratification culture that we have. Almost like fast food. You drive up to a window, you get your food in a minute or two, and you're gone. That's the way information is going these days. We have to make a distinction between traditional news platforms, between bona fide news platforms, and we have to make a difference between credible journalism, journalism in its true form, and yellow journalism, meaning sensationalism, hyperbole, exaggerations, creating eye-catching headlines just for the sake of getting readership or significant audiences. That's what a lot of media has created these days. And in fact, what you were reading at the top about, for example, the News of the World using very, very underhand tactics to get information, going into people, hacking into people's voice messages and so on to get information. The News of the World was guilty of that. But that was their stock in trade. That is what they wanted to do. That was their bread and butter. They were into creating these eye-catching headlines, yellow journalism to get readers, to get likes and to get shares. But credible journalism, which is worth its salt, cannot be engaged in that. So tabloid journalism is about getting headlines, getting eyes, getting readers. If it's, for example, a newspaper, if it's an online platform, getting likes and shares and getting people to getting eyeballs, aggregating eyeballs. So it's about, a lot of it may not necessarily be false information per se, but it is certainly exaggerated. Hardcore news and respectable news organizations, which are worth their salt, which has a reputation to protect, and the currency of journalism, of journalists with worth their salt, is their credibility. They live or die with their credibility. If they get something wrong, it takes away, you can take years to build your credibility. As a journalist, I've worked, as I said, starting in 1998. So this year makes 23 years since I've been operating as a journalist. I've taken that long to build my credibility, but I can lose it all. It can be shattered in one story I do that I didn't check properly, or wasn't fair. I didn't give both sides an opportunity to respond, etc. So you take so long to build it, and then you lose it. Long and short, the entities that operate both serious, hardcore news entities and news programs, and those that operate tabloids, I mean, there's a way around it. The tabloid is focused on aggregating eyes. So should there be boundaries? You look, Jesse, at the news of the world, and you look what they were able to do. It's almost as if there were no boundaries. And sometimes their success in aggregating eyeballs and in getting readers sometimes bred a culture where there was almost an unconscionable quest to go farther and deeper into very suspect territory, meaning they were willing to push the frontiers even further, push the frontiers of what was acceptable. Because when you break into somebody's hack into their voice messages, I mean, that borders on criminality. And in some states, in terms of cyber crimes and so on, that now becomes almost criminal behavior. So they were, and sometimes their success in getting readers, their readers wanted more. Their readers wanted them to get more lurid, more sensational, and that meant pushing the boundaries even further. I suppose their owners and editors were not willing to back off. They were not willing to come back from the precipice. They were willing to go further and go closer to the edge of the precipice, hopefully without falling off. There ought to be boundaries. I hope that even for those who practice yellow journalism or tabloid journalism, or who trying to get headlines through sensationalism, that they understand and recognize that there can be no benefit from hurting people. Right? I mean, because there's no solace and there's no consolation in hurting somebody just to sell some more papers. And there has to be conscience in journalism. Because just like with the Hippocratic Oath in medicine, do no harm, journalism has a similar kind of rubric and a similar kind of ethos. We should not be doing any harm. In fact, we should be comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. So that's the kind of modus operandi that we have. In other words, those in positions of power, we should be constantly asking questions. We should be constantly holding them accountable, holding their feet to the fire. That's how we afflict the comfortable. But we should be comforting the afflicted by not adding to their sorrows, by not using their situation, not using their unfortunate situation sometimes to profit from it and to exploit it, to sell papers and to get readers. But yes, you're absolutely right. There should be boundaries, but unfortunately, sometimes there have been no boundaries. So it has to be whoever is getting the information out. The burden of proof, the burden of responsibility, the onus is on the publisher to get the information out correctly, and to not only get the information accurately, but being fair, because there may not always be an intersection between accuracy and fairness. If I say, if I give half of the truth, I got part of the truth right. I was accurate in what I said, but I left out something that would have contributed to a fairer explanation of an issue. If I say, for example, the boy went to pick up the ball, ran across the street to pick up the ball, but I left out the fact that he actually had to do that because in doing that, he ran across not only to pick up the ball, but to save his little brother who was going to be hit down by a vehicle. If I left out that part, it made it appear that the boy was being reckless. So sometimes not just being accurate, but being fair and making sure that we get the response from both sides of an issue, not just getting from one side, because we want to give an accurate as possible picture and a fair enough picture so that the audiences will get an opportunity to come to their own conclusions. We can't and we shouldn't in journalism color people's judgment. Present the information, present all the facts, and the viewers and the audiences decide. Right, so let me take the first part first. The coverage of Meghan, not altogether surprising because it was done by, to a large extent, tabloid media. In other words, their job, like the paparazzi who were constantly on the heels of Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana, and who were even there when she went into the fatal accident. They see their jobs almost as not necessarily just reporting on an issue, but creating an issue, even when there is none. I mean, because their job is their only objective, their stock and trade, their raison d'etre is to sell papers and to sell and to aggregate eyes. So they couldn't care less whether or not they're afflicting people or making people uncomfortable. What it meant, even if it means that they have to be voyeurs and using private cameras and hiring private investigators and following people around and snooping on them, they didn't care. They couldn't care less. So it would be difficult to think that the tabloid media was trying to comfort the afflicted. Obviously, their job to as much as possible get into people's faces, and for the most part, that is going to afflict people for the most part. So the coverage of Meghan, to a large extent, left her very, very uncomfortable. And I think she actually sought legal redress in some cases. And I think in some cases, she actually succeeded in the legal redress that she sought. And good for her, because she should also, every person, irrespective of how public their life is entitled to some level of privacy. And they should be entitled to some redress if their rights are breached. And that's why we have the courts. So in a way, understandable why the tabloid media did what they did and how they covered her, but Meghan also had a right to her reputation and to her privacy, as much as there can be a balance between the privacy of an individual and the fact that she's a public figure and a member of the royal family. But yes, I mean, it would be difficult to look at their coverage as being fair, balanced, because I don't think that was their objective. Their objective was to sell as many papers as possible, and that's what they went after.
We have a listener question that just came in, and they said it sounds like and looks like as though a tabloid is like a possessed jackass on the loose, and they want to know who holds those tabloids accountable, or are there no accountability?
Good
because
question.
They operate under the banner of a tabloid, and if so, what really stops the multiplication of more tabloids over credible news agencies?
Right, that's a very engaged question, and we thank our listener for that. Right, so who holds them accountable? The issue of regulation, the issue of regulatory authority in the media has been a thorny one for a long time, and especially as media has exploded in terms of we're having the propagation and the proliferation of all these social media platforms. Essentially right now, there's been a democratization, a liberalization of information technology. So anybody can essentially go out and be a publisher. Anybody can essentially go out and be a purveyor of information. Whereas decades ago, it was just confined to a few people who had the cash and the capital to be able to start a news entity and be able to put up transmitters all over the place and broadcast. Right now, with the internet and voice over VoIP, anybody can essentially be a purveyor of information. So the second part of the question first for the listener is the propagation of these tabloids whose interest is in trying to aggregate eyes and to try to get as many people as possible to share and to like and to buy, if it's papers that they're producing. It's going to be difficult to stop their propagation. Who holds them accountable? In different jurisdictions, there are, let's be clear, people have legal redress in every jurisdiction. Once it is a self-respecting country, whether it's a tabloid, whatever they call themselves in terms of the nomenclature of the organization, if they publish something about somebody that's not true, then that person has the right to defend their reputation and has a right to their reputation and not have it tarnished and defamed. So there's always legal redress. But regulatory authority and modification is varies from different jurisdiction to jurisdiction, because in some countries the regulation is a little bit more lax. In other countries it's a bit tougher, but you would expect that in the UK, with their culture of media regulation, that they would perhaps be pay a little bit more focus on the tabloids. Although you have to also bear in mind that there has to be a balance between freedom of expression and the freedom of these tabloids to publish what they want. But bear in mind that they know that they can go only so far, no more, because if they are sued successfully, it can put them out of business. So there's a fair bit of self-censorship as well by the tabloids, because they know that people have legal redress. But you would expect that, sometimes there has to be that balance between the right of the publisher to freedom of speech and the right of the individual to their privacy and their reputation. And that's where that intersection, the regulators come in terms of ensuring that, something was not tasteful enough, something was infringed on somebody's rights. So principally there is the court in terms of the legality of it, but you would expect that the regulators are also paying close attention, especially in this age when we have a proliferation of social media. The consumer of media content should also be mindful of what they're consuming. Because sometimes, whereas the Romans taught us that, I suppose, viscerally and historically, perhaps harkening back to our distant past as Homo sapiens, we have this lust somehow for blood and gore. And so that's why we have the gladiatorial games in Rome, where people would just go and, that was like, it was like the opium of the people. Karl Marx said religion is the opium of the people, of the masses. In Rome, the gladiatorial games was like the opium of the people. No matter how many problems the people had, they were hungry, they couldn't get social services. When they went to the gladiatorial games, they forgot about all their problems. And so the emperors had these to take the people's minds away from the problems that they had. In the same way, the tabloids seem to satisfy that lust that people have for gossip, for information about other people, for just the quickest information, instant gratification, the culture of wanting to know now and wanting to know about, for example, celebrities and people like in the royal family, like the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and so on. So the tabloids recognize that, and they're trying to satisfy that thirst and lust that many people have for that level of information. But the consumer of content must also be discerning and must also check to see what is the reputation of this paper or this online news source. Do they have a reputation for checking their facts? Or are they always apologizing or retracting or correcting or updating? And if they really want information that is solid, that is properly checked by bona fide journalists who have a reputation to defend and whose stock and trade is their credibility, then of course, I'm pretty sure that consumers of content know where to turn in their respective countries. They know which are the respectable media entities who know that they have to get it right all the time, as opposed to the tabloids who might just be sensationalizing just for a headline. So generally, yes, the responsibility and the onus is on viewers as well. Viewers, consumers of content, listeners, readers, social media, people on social media, to be discerning and to check what their source of information is. In the same way.
And now for today's spotlight. UMERADIO was originally founded in 2009. Back then, it was called Advanced Media Production. After winning first place in the Jamaica Broilers Fair Play Awards, the company ceased operations around 2012. In December 2018, the company was rebranded and brought back into operations with new ownership. And in February 2019, it launched its first radio station, UMERADIO, under the call sign WUME-DB, New York. UMERADIO is a digital radio station owned and operated by UME Digital Media Inc., a digital studio and multimedia company headquartered in Bronx, New York. Our brands are committed to inspiring, educating, and entertaining people through transformative and empowering content. Our mission is to reach 1 million households, touch 1 million lives, and showcase 1 million brands. Get the UMERADIO app for the full experience, available via your Apple and Google Play stores. If you want to listen on the web, you may go to app.umeradio.com or via our website at www.umeradio.com. Our content can be watched on Cardi Vision. You can also listen in via Amazon Music, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Podcast, Podbean, TuneU, Live 365, Spotify, Stitcher Player, FM Listen Notes. For all business inquiries, contact us at info@umeradio.com. This station is 100% community funded. To support us, please visit umeradio.com/get involved. Subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, and everywhere online at UME Radio. Thank you for supporting us. UME Radio, positive entertainment 24/7.